Today, we will learn how to create client or server certificates. And this is part 3 of how to set up certification authority. Coming on to our first slide, that is prerequisite. So our CA should be up and running, and client certificate should already been added to web browser for accessing admin web. This was covered in part 1. And in part 2, we covered how to create certificate and entity profiles. So we should have already created client and server certificate and entity profiles. So we are assuming that they are already available to us. So coming on to today's part, that is how to create client certificate using registration authority. So first of all, what we will do, we will just go to the RA website, and over there we will click on make a new request option, and then we have to follow the instructions. The first one is we have to select the certificate type. So for us, we will be selecting the client and entity profile, which we have already created over here. So what that profile will do, it will pre-populate a lot of things for us. So the next thing is key pair generation. Either we can create our private key on our own machine and just upload the certificate signing request, or we can create it here on the server. And then for we can, in case if we are creating on server, then we can actually define which type of, or select the type of key which we want to use. For example, RSA 2048. Then we have to complete the distinguished name. So primarily, rest everything will be populated from the profile. We have to just provide the common name for this certificate. And similarly, we have to complete the subject alternate name. And finally, we have to provide user credentials, username and enrollment code. This code will be used by the user for importing this certificate into his own web browser. So similarly, we can create the server certificate. The only difference is that in this case, we will be selecting server and entity profile. Okay, let's quickly go to the demonstration. So we know that our CA is already up and running. So we go to the web page, which is our public web, and then we go to the CA. So in part second, we have already created the certificate profile. So we have client certificate profile and server certificate profile. Then we have already created the entity profile, that is Mufasir client entity and Mufasir server entity profiles. There are two ways of creating or signing the certificates. So the first one is using the public web. So in case if we want to use the public web, then we have to add an entity. So we will not use that method today. We will be using RA web today. So in case of RA web registration authority, we will go to make new request. We will select the type. So these are two entity profiles. So I want to create a client certificate. Where I want to create, I want key to be created onto the server. So I have selected on server, that is on RA. So it is asking me the key algorithm which I want to use. It could be anything. I have decided to use ECDSA. It is asking the domain name. So I am saying test.com is my domain name, for example. And rest everything has been populated by the profile. I can provide the DNS name. It should be same test.com. Then depending upon, I can provide the IP addresses. If I have more, I can provide more IP addresses. So username, I can use test 707 user, and I have to provide his enrollment code. I am providing the code of TEST test, for example, another code of TEST test, and no, everything is all set. Everything is there. So next thing is I can just download the type of certificate which I need. It could be PAM, or it could be PKCS12, which can be imported directly into the web browser, or it could be JKS. So for example, we decide to download test.com PAM. If I open this one, you can see the certificate is already there. It has been created, and it creates my key. This is my certificate, and finally it will be also adding the CS certificate to it. So that is one thing. In case if I want to create the certificate, it is similar to. The only difference is I have to select the server profile.